I have to sterilize this equipment before I use it. It's not hot enough to boil the water.
This is Professor Heinrich von Kruger.
This is Father Arno Moriani. Dr. Florescu has gone out. May I take a message?
Please ask him to call me back as soon as possible at Munich 321941.
I'll be sure to do that. Goodbye, Professor.
Goodbye, Father.
I've done this hundreds of times to other people, but giving yourself a shot is not the same thing. Be brave. It has to be done. That's the right place. All that's left to do is press the needle deep into the vein. The ampoule is full. Perfect. Now I have to store the bottle of blood in the refrigerated cabinet. The door of the refrigerated cabinet mustn't stay open too long. Now I have to figure out my blood type, as well as that of the 3 last donors, and update the analysis reports. Perfect. I'm sure of my results. Maria should be happy. I've done my work well. I finished the sample and the tests. Have you been back long?
I should have come help you, shouldn't I?
I was delighted to be of assistance. But now I have to think of my own work.
Of course. I hope your investigation is going well.
It has changed character. As strange as it might seem, I now am ordered to study some supernatural creatures, vampires.
Vampires? Like Dracula?
Dracula?
Don't you know it? It's a wonderful novel. I'll get it for you. Look at this book. It's Dracula by Bram Stoker. Oscar Wilde said it was the most beautiful novel of the century.
What a massive novel. Let's peruse it to see if there are any interesting parts.
I was captivated by this novel, and you know the strangest thing? The author used Vlad Tepes as his model for the character of Dracula.
Vlad Tepes? The voivode?
The very same one. The one who used to rule from the Castle of Twilight, whose ruins you must have noticed. Vlad Tepes, nicknamed Dracula. I can guess what comes next. He wants me to call back as soon as possible.
You don't really want to, if I'm not mistaken.
Professor Kruger is a great scientist. He worked with Martha and now insists on me continuing her research. But I haven't a research scientist's soul. Anyway, it's too much work.
Now, isn't that a shame?
Oh, please, Father, no sermons. I promise that I'll take it upon myself to finish the analyses he wants from me. I'm afraid not. For me, vampires are romantic fictional characters, not subjects to be studied. In fact, I did observe several spontaneous cures, but, you know, this sort of thing happens relatively frequently. Spontaneous does not necessarily mean miraculous. Everything is possible. Stoker speaks of this voivod Dracula who earned his nickname attacking the Turks beyond the Great River at the very border of their country. That clearly signifies Vlad Tepes. That prince spent his youth as a captive of the Turks. Afterwards, he fought them fiercely. The word has two meanings, devil or dragon. It's been translated into every language, and I've heard that the director, Murnau, is going to do a film version, but I don't know if I will have the opportunity to see the movie. I like him. One day he came to the dispensary and took a picture of me. He gave me some prints. I know him. He came to the dispensary too, to give his blood. Adele, lie down. I'm sorry. That dog is unbearable.
No, he's not. He's a good watchdog.
You're kind. He's a good dog. His presence is reassuring. He keeps prowlers away, and any cats or foxes who might attack my birds.
I have to talk with Janos. I wonder if he knows that his great hero, Vlad Tepes, served as the model for Dracula, the vampire. Hello, Janos. I have a surprise for you. I've just been ordered to conduct an investigation into vampires.
What do you know? Anything can happen. I was talking about the same subject with Stefan Luca, who just arrived at the inn. He's kind of a fanatic, and firmly believes in the existence of vampires. You should question him.
You're more useful to me because you're a historian. I have several questions to ask you, particularly about Vlad Tepes.
I'd be glad to answer them, but this incomplete sundial irritates me. Could you first help me restore it? Dragon. It's the dynastic emblem of Vlad's family. Where did you find it?
A vagabond gave it to Ozana. Perhaps I should return it to her.
Oh, but its place is here. The person who took it had no right to pillage these ruins.
I must admit, you're right.
Can you hear? The wolves multiplied during the war. Now that peace has returned, they're hungry. The recognized expert on the subject was Professor Van Bergen.
The great Orientalist. The man who crisscrossed Asia for the English Secret Service?
The very one. At his death, his superb collection was bequeathed to his successor, Professor Irina Buksov. Speak about her to Stefan Luca. I think he has her number.
So Professor Boxoff would be the person to consult?
Without a doubt. She possesses remarkable pieces on the subject you are interested in. A manuscript of a biography of Vlad Tepes, in particular.
Good. I shall get in touch with her.
That's a legend forged by his enemies. Stoker was inspired by it to write a very bad novel. It's a journey of initiation that some traditions associate with Vlad Tepes. Most likely because Vlad was called Dracula, which means the dragon or the devil. But it's more related to occultism than to history. Professor Buksov will fill you in better than I can. I assume she took some of your blood? She gets everybody to contribute.
Irina Buksov? I tried to contact her, but I was rejected. She's incredibly mistrustful. It's a shame, because I think she knows a great deal about the Path of the Dragon.
Do you have her phone number? Who knows? Maybe I'll be luckier than you.
Do you think so? Possibly. You're a priest. That inspires trust. Call 445-827 in Budapest. But whatever you do, don't say you know me.
Number, please. This is Irina Buksov.
This is Father Arno Moriani. Hello, Professor. At the request of my hierarchy, I'm investigating the persistence of certain superstitions. You are an authority on questions of folklore and popular beliefs.
You flatter me. Let's say that I've had the good fortune to inherit the library of my predecessor, Professor Herman von Bergen. But tell me, what exactly is your investigation focused on?
The belief in those imaginary creatures called vampires.
Vampires. You're interested in vampires.
Just to demystify them, the Catholic Church wants to fight this superstition.
I have serious reserves about getting into the subject. I am in great demand, you know. Could you be more precise about the framework in which you're conducting your inquiry?
I was entrusted with it by Monsignor Felicio Briganti of the Congregation of Rites. If need be, you can contact him by calling Vatican 63.
Your references are serious. I'll accept to help you, Father, but I don't trust the telephone. Could you visit me at my office in Budapest?
Certainly. As early as tomorrow, if it's all right with you.
Very good. I'll expect you.
Oh, I forgot. I was told that you possess a volume related to my inquiry. A biography of Vlad Tepes?
That's true. Professor von Bergen left me Michel Beheim's account in verse. It's a 15th century manuscript, very precious. But did you know that the German prose version was reprinted in 1905? It's a brochure entitled Geschichte Dracula Weide, brought out by the Friends of the Vatican Library.
Published by the Friends of the Vatican Library? In that case, it won't be difficult for me to procure a copy. Goodbye, Professor.
Goodbye, Father. Number, please. Alba Eula, put me through to Germany. Munich, 321941.
This is Professor Heinrich von Kruger.
This is Father Arno Moriani. Professor, I'm calling back to ask for your help.
How can I help you?
Well, it's rather delicate to explain. You should know, first of all, that I belong to the Holy Congregation of Rites. I came to Vladiviste to investigate the life of Martha Caligarl.
Would you like me to talk to you about her? She was a remarkable woman.
To tell the truth, my mission has changed. For reasons that would be a little long to explain, I now have to investigate vampires.
Vampires? Don't tell me the Catholic Church has started to believe in vampires.
On the contrary, my superiors want to combat this belief. They're alarmed to see how resistant it still is in the 20th century.
Yeah, very good. If it's to fight superstition, you can count on my assistance.
It will be invaluable to me, for I need the viewpoint of a scientist on the vampire myth.
Do you realize this is the very subject of the research I was carrying out with Dr. Caligarl? We discovered a disease, the P syndrome, whose symptoms are quite similar to those attributed to the victims of vampires. So the legend is based on specific medical facts. Dr. Caligarl contacted me when she was caring for a patient called Marescu. His granulocytes showed a very curious anomaly. She sent me a blood sample by carrier pigeon, and we worked on this case together. The result of our collaboration was the discovery of P syndrome. Afterwards, we had to specify the cause of the disease and perfect a serum. For that, I needed statistical data. I asked Dr. Caligarl to take a large number of samples from the population of Vladaviste. Unfortunately, the war interrupted our research.
Did you pick up again with Martha Caligarl after the end of the hostilities?
It wasn't possible for me to contact her immediately. When I was finally able to phone the dispensary, she was dead. It was Dr. Florescu who answered me. Of course, I've been insisting for some time now that she do so. As soon as she sends me the results I'm missing, I'll be able to find a serum that's effective against P syndrome. I just say that they're not supernatural creatures, but there certainly do exist mentally ill people who are bloodthirsty. Look at Countess Elizabeth Báthory, who in the 16th century bled to death hundreds of young girls before she was walled up alive in her Carpathian castle. In addition, as I mentioned, patients afflicted with the P syndrome suffer from very odd physical and psychological disorders that make them resemble the victims of vampires. Oh, what did these patients do?
They went out alone in the night, as if they were answering a call. They ripped off the garlic necklaces the doctor had placed on them.
Somnambulism, allergy to garlic. Those signs are most likely associated with P syndrome, as are pallor, drawn features, anemia, and other symptoms we haven't yet discovered. Unfortunately, yes. What an abominable novel.
You're too severe. That's not what Oscar Wilde thought.
I won't tell you what I think of Oscar Wilde, and I'll limit myself to the novel. It's a tissue of inconsistencies. Let's see. Stoker affirms that those who die as victims of a vampire should become one in turn. So at that rate, vampirism should spread like an epidemic, with a growth rate faster than Fibonacci's famous immortal sequence. In a first stage, all of mankind would be vampirized, and then, in a second, the vampires would also disappear, not having any victims left to feed on. So Stoker's hypothesis is therefore perfectly absurd. No species can live without regulation. Stoker considers himself a historian and a scientist, but he's just an oddball. His novel is a collection of implausibilities. Take the character of Lucy. That woman, he keeps saying, is getting better, until she just dies. A victim of Dracula, she's treated by transfusion. Blindly, of course, because at the time, we knew nothing of blood types. In those conditions, what are the chances the patient will accept the donor's blood?
About 1 out of 3, if my recollections are good. Nonetheless, in desperate cases, it's worth the trouble to try.
Certainly. But the good Professor Van Helsing, who is always described as a genius, repeated the operation with 4 different donors. The chances of survival for that poor Lucy then fell to less than 2%. It's probably the transfusions that killed her, and not Dracula. Let's get back to Van Helsing, supposedly an expert on vampires. He teaches us that they can read minds and change into bats. However, he's not worried about finding one of the latter at the window of the room in which he's holding a meeting. And then he seems so surprised that Dracula knows his plans. The naivety of that character is irritating. Yeah, I know the work of Murnau. They call it expressionism. But for me, those morbid fantasies have much more to do with pathology. Tell me, could I ask you a personal question? Listening to your voice, I have the feeling that you're a little tense.
Yes, I'm not sleeping well.
Nothing else? You can confide in me. I'm a doctor, you know.
Well, sometimes I get the feeling I'm being spied upon. I'm sure it's only an impression, but it's becoming an obsession.
Father Arno, you are sensitive and susceptible, like our late lamented Dr. Caligarl. These are qualities, but they make you vulnerable. Above all, don't let your imagination govern you.
That's good advice. Thank you. I'll try to follow it. Goodbye, Professor.
Goodbye, Father.
Number, please.
This is Cardinal Felicio Briganti.
This is Father Arno Moriani.
Delighted to hear your voice. So, Mr. Devil's Advocate, What's the weather like in Transylvania?
Stormy. But that doesn't bother me. It gives the countryside a kind of tragic coloring.
My goodness, Arno, you haven't changed. What can I do for you?
I intend to go have a discussion with Professor Irina Boxov in Budapest to complete my file on vampires.
Very good. Will you be coming back to Rome directly afterwards?
If you don't see any problem with it, I'll go back to Vladoviste first. I'll be more tranquil there to write out my conclusions.
Ah, an excellent idea. You'll be able to take advantage of the fresh country air. I also plan on spending a week or two in the country.
I almost forgot. Could you have a work that was published by the Friends of the Vatican Library sent to me?
Certainly.
It's a bound volume, Geschichte Dracula Vaida, reprinted in 1905.
No problem. I'll send it to you at your inn. Let me insist on one point, Arno. For your research, it's important that you consult the best scientific experts. We need the authority of a doctor and a historian to support your conclusions.
I understand.
And after you've finished your work, make sure you get some rest.
Goodbye, Your Eminence.
Be well, Arno.
He used to correspond regularly with Martha before the war. He didn't believe in vampires. According to him, the victims were sick people who needed to be cured. Martha shared his opinion at the beginning. It was during the war that she understood the truth.
Ozana, I'm leaving for Budapest for a day or two. Would you please keep my room?
Well, that is...
Naturally, I'll pay you for my keep, even for the nights that I'm not here.
In that case, of course, Father. I'll keep your room for you.
Luana.
Certain things, but I also know the virtues of silence. As much as I want to know. I have a feeling that before the end you will know more than me about the dragon,